the North and South in Ireland and the quarrel of the North and South in America. In both cases the South was on the whole agricultural, the North on the whole industrial. True, the parallel exaggerates the position of Belfast. To complete it, we must suppose the whole federal system to have consisted of Pittsburgh. In both, the side that was more successful was felt by many to be less attractive. In both, the same political terms were used, such as the term union and unionism. An ordinary Englishman comes to America knowing these main lines of American history, and knowing that the American knows the similar main lines of Irish history. He knows that there are strong champions of Ireland in America. Possibly he also knows that there are very genuine champions of England in America. By every possible historical analogy, he would naturally expect to find the pro-Irish in the South and the pro-English in the North. As a matter of fact, he finds almost exactly the opposite. He finds Boston governed by Irishmen, and Nashville containing the people more pro-English than Englishmen. He finds Virginians not only of British blood like George Washington, but of British opinions almost worthy of George III. But I do not say this, as will be seen in a moment, as a criticism of the comparative Toryism of the South. I say it as a criticism of the superlative stupidity of English propaganda. On another page I remark on the need for a new sort of English propaganda, a propaganda that should be really English and have some remote reference to England. Now, if it were a matter of making foreigners feel the real humours and humanities of England, there are no Americans so able or willing to do it as the Americans of the Southern States. As I have already hinted, some of them are so loyal to the English humanities that they think it is their duty to defend even the English inhumanities. New England is turning into New Ireland, but Old England can still be faintly traced in Old Dixie. It contains some of the best that England herself has had, and therefore, of course, the things that England herself has lost, or is trying to lose. But above all, as I have said, there are people in these places whose historic memories and family traditions really hold them to us, not by alliance, but by affection. Indeed, they have the affection in spite of the alliance. They love us in spite of our compliments and courtesies and hands across the sea. All our ambassadorial salutations and speeches cannot kill their love. They manage even to respect us in spite of the shady Jew stockbrokers we send them as English envoys, or the efficient men who are sent out to be tactful with foreigners because they have been too tactless with trades unionists. The type of traditional Americans, North or South, really has some traditions connecting him with England. And though he is now in a very small minority, I cannot imagine why England should wish to make it smaller. England once sympathized with the South still sympathizes with England. It would seem that the South, or some elements in the South, had rather the advantage of us in political firmness and fidelity. But it does not follow that the fidelity will stand every shock. And at this moment and in this matter, of all things in the world, our political propagandists must try to bolster British imperialism up by kicking Southern secession when it is down. The English politician eagerly points out that we shall be justified in crushing Ireland, exactly as Sumner and Stevens crushed the most English part of America. It does not seem to occur to them that this comparison between the Unionist triumph in America and a Unionist triumph in Britain is rather hard upon our particular sympathizers who did not triumph. When England exults in Lincoln's victory over his foes, she is exulting in his victory over her own friends. Or if her diplomacy continues as delicate and chivalrous as it is at present, they may soon be her only friends. But however this may be, it is as well to bear witness to some of the elements of my own experience, and I can answer for it at least that there are some people in the South who will not be pleased at being swept into the rubbish heap of history as rebels and ruffians, and who will not, I regret to say, by any means enjoy even being classed with Fenians and Sinn Feiners. Now, touching the actual comparison between the conquest of the Confederacy and the conquest of Ireland, there are, of course, a good many things to be said which politicians cannot be expected to understand. Strange to say, it is not certain that a lost cause was never worth winning, and it would be easy to argue that the world lost very much indeed when that particular cause was lost. These are not days in which it is exactly obvious that an agricultural society was more dangerous than an industrial one. And even Southern slavery has had this one moral merit, that it was decadent. It has this one historic advantage, that it is dead. The Northern slavery, industrial slavery, or what is called wage slavery, is not decaying, but increasing, and the end of it is not yet. But in any case, it would be well for us to realize that the reproach of resembling the Confederacy does not ring in all ears as an unanswerable condemnation. It is scarcely a self-evident or sufficient argument to some hearers even to prove that the English are as delicate and philanthropic as Sherman, still less that the Irish are as criminal and lawless as Lee. Nor will it soothe every single soul on the American continent to say that the English victory in Ireland will be followed by a reconstruction, like the reconstruction exhibited in the film called The Birth of a Nation. And indeed there is a further inference from that fine panorama of the exploits of the Ku Klux Klan. It would be easy, as I say, to turn the argument entirely in favour of the Confederacy. It would be easy to draw the moral, not that the Southern Irish are as wrong as the Southern States, but that the Southern States were as right as the Southern Irish. But upon the whole I do not incline to accept the parallel in that sense any more than in the opposite sense. For reasons I have already given elsewhere, I do believe that in the main Abraham Lincoln was right. But right in what? If Lincoln was right, he was right in guessing that there was not really a Northern nation and a Southern nation, but only one American nation. And if he has been proved right, he has been proved right by the fact that men in the South, as well as the North, do now feel a patriotism for that American nation. His wisdom, if it really was wisdom, was justified not by his opponents being conquered, but by their being converted. Now, if the English politicians must insist on this parallel, they ought to see that the parallel is fatal to themselves. The very test which proved Lincoln right has proved them wrong. The very judgment which may have justified him quite unquestionably condemns them. We have again and again conquered Ireland, and have never come an inch nearer to converting Ireland. We have had not one Gettysburg, but 20 Gettysburgs. But we have had no Union. And that is where, as I have remarked, it is relevant to remember that flying fantastic vision on the films that told so many people what no histories have told them. I heard, when I was in America, rumours of the local reappearance of the Ku Klux Klan. But the smallness and mildness of the manifestation, as compared with the old Southern or the new Irish case, is alone a sufficient example of the exception that proves the rule. To approximate to any resemblance to recent Irish events, we must imagine the Ku Klux Klan riding again in more than the terrors of that vision, wild as the wind, white as the moon, terrible as an army with banners. If there were really such a revival of the Southern action, there would equally be a revival of the Southern argument. It would be clear that Lee was right and Lincoln was wrong, that the Southern States were national and were as indestructible as nations. If the South were as rebellious as Ireland, the North would be as wrong as England. But I desire a new English diplomacy that will exhibit not the things in which England is wrong, but the things in which England is right. And England is right in England, just as she is wrong in Ireland. And it is exactly that rightness of a real nation in itself that is at once most difficult and most desirable to explain to foreigners. Now the Irishman, and to some extent the American, has remained alien to England, largely because he does not truly realize that the Englishman loves England. Still less can he really imagine why the Englishman loves England. That is why I insist on the stupidity of ignoring and insulting the opinions of those few Virginians and other Southerners who really have some inherited notion of